participations, both from online. I understand there's some people out there spending lunchtime with us, and of course, you guys in the room too. Green Chimneys, how many of you have been at Green Chimneys? Is there anyone who has been there? It's a residential treatment school for children. It is in Brewster, New York. It has been in existence since 1947. And I think what I'll do before we continue, I'm going to show you a very brief 9-minute little segment to give you the lay of the land of who we work with on the human side, in order then to really focus on the animal component of it. The video conked out halfway through, and if it does that again, that's okay because you'll have seen enough. Yes, ma'am. Working. Yeah. Not gonna. That's not. I can't do this for 40 minutes. Sorry. Have that one of those. Let's try one of those. We'll do that during the video. How about that? Sarah, you're being called. Briefly, let me just started in 1947 by our founder, Dr. Ross, who's the older gentleman you see speaking. He and his dream was to start a school for children where the children would interact with animals as part of their time at the school. Since 1947, they have done that. Originally, it was supposed to be a working farm, but over the decades, it became much more animal assisted. Take it. Like about the video is it gives you the visuals of the animals, the children, of what the facility looks like, because that can be very hard to explain to someone who's never been there. My role is to be the director of what we call our nature-based program. So anywhere where you have plants and or animals, That's where my staff comes in. We have about 25 on our team. In each area, there are specialists. We have our 2 gardens where we have organic plant stewardship and also have beekeeping, maple syruping, and more outdoor activities. Not good? Okay. Can you guys hear if you just project? If they're with the sound, I thought, but talk. Then we have our horse program, which is a therapeutic riding program. It's not just about riding, it's horse care, vocational work, groundwork, also psychotherapy with horses. We have a dog, shelter dog program that's relatively new, where we bring shelter dogs onto campus. The children work with them over a 6-week period and then help adopt the dog into a permanent home, and that's part of the process. The Wildlife Rehabilitation Center you saw, we specialize in birds of prey, and hawks, eagles, falcons, owls, and we get a lot of injured birds, and we also have a collection of permanently injured birds on site. Additionally, there's reptiles, there's cat dogs, there's about 300 animals that we have in our care. Talk any more about the children. What's very significant for me, my background is in animal welfare. I came through the ASPC, the American Humane Association, and I entered the field of what's called the human-animal interaction, whatever you want to call it, advocate for the animal. And I think we need to be very careful in a program that brings animals and children together, that's the welfare of the animal, the well-being of the animal, not just assumed and not something that gets sort of moved to the side. It's very, look at pretty pictures of a dog visiting someone in a hospital or, of what we just showed, and sort of gloss over care issues, animal stress issues, animal welfare issues. So at Chimneys, we try to make a real commitment to the animals as animals. Our mission is to help children. That's why we exist. That's what our main business is, to reconnect children with success. Average length of stay is 2.5 years. It's mostly boys, ages 5 to about 18. They all have psychosocial issues. 60% are on the autism spectrum. So they serve. But in terms of the animals, and it's very subtle, we try, at least in my team, we try to talk about using animals in our program because it's a using relationship. Even reptile, the snake, certainly the farm animals, the horses, the dogs, are individuals in their own right with their own needs. They're often quite separate from the children. Our goal is to create a program where the animals can thrive, where the animals can sort of live based on the needs that they have, and it bridges the needs that the children have, and we bring them together in that way when our program really is most successful. So the child has to benefit, the service has to benefit, but the animal has to have some benefit too. It means that we as a staff are very tuned in each of the animals, and so that we have systems in place to go to the welfare of the animals. I mentioned an hour ago when I spoke to a smaller group of students, you will never see large groups of children just bounding across the farm interacting with animals. With any child, certainly with our children, that would not be helpful, it would not be responsible. Supervision is what keeps a program like ours safe. In order to supervise the program, the staff that works with me has deep knowledge of the children we work with, but equally of the animals. The animal interaction has become very diverse in the last 20 years. You now find animals in all sorts of situations in many different ways. Everything from visiting programs in hospitals, service dogs that assist people with different disabilities. You have horseback riding programs that focus more on hippotherapy, which is more physical well-being. Then you have therapeutic horseback programs or grab work programs. You have dolphin swim programs, fossils, wildlife. There's a few programs, but not nearly as many. In terms of bodies, it's free for all. Unfortunately, as a field, we have not evolved to the point where real standards of practice. We've talked a lot about evidence-based practice, that we really want to apply that to human-animal interaction. But challenges are that research is lagging behind. There's not a lot of data to really validate some of the interactions that intuitively we know work. And really not a solid way to credential programs. Program Green Chimneys, we willingly are a exhibit of animals with the USDA, so we open for spot inspections, and they do come and look at our fencing, look at our animal care protocols. We are with the National Therapeutic Horseback Riding Governing Organization. We try to belong to as many accrediting groups as we can, have our staff certified as much as possible in order to really give that solid underpinning. The child is not forced to interact with animals. It's a choice. But what we find is that because care settings are quite serious, and we take the animal care so seriously, when the students come to the farm, they realize that this is not the classroom, that this is not the dormitory, or this is not some psychiatrist trying to, test them. They kind of jump into feeding the animals in the morning, taking care of them. We very much make them aware that the animals are here for and because of them, and that it's their responsibility. I mentioned in the video that there are different metaphors at play. What that means, lessons that you learn with animals can be very, very different. For animals, the lesson is to learn to get close to that animal, to pet animal, to touch that animal, to really create a very intense bond. That does not work in our wildlife center, where we intentionally want to make the birds wild, keep them wild. We do not want them to become accustomed to people. Yet again, are different. You don't hug a horse or get in a horse's face the same way you might with the dog that you know. The animals are teachers in their own right. It's always interesting to me. People ask me which is the best kind of animal. I said that to the students an hour ago. Everyone can have a place in a program like ours, but conditions for that animal have to be met. Particularly our wildlife center, I will not recommend to any school, anybody who does human service work. In order to do proper wildlife work, you really have to have the right setting for the birds, you have to have the right conditions, and you have to layer in the children in a way that works. So the kids right away learn that these are potentially dangerous birds, that they have claws, that they have beaks, that they can do a lot of damage, that we don't make them depend on us. But some really need to learn about boundaries, whereas some children need to learn about closeness. The horseback riding program, some of the bigger lessons are leadership. Because leader with an animal that potentially can hurt you, a 1,000-pound horse, and here you are, and you're going to get that horse to respect you enough to walk with you, to get in and out of the pasture. Child with hyperactivity, one of the quickest lessons is when you send them out into the pasture with the halter and say, go get that horse, and he's child, all over the place, terribly jumpy, and the horse won't have anything to do with her. She suddenly learns that maybe if I keep my arms to my side, if I keep still, if I relax a little bit, the horse may come closer. So the horse has become kind of the teacher in that moment. I can say, calm down 50 times, and the child won't do it. But by the full feedback loop of the horse slowing down and letting the child come up when she calms down, she learns something in a moment, and that's the experiential learning that happens around animals quite a bit. Who come in fear. Fear of animals is very, very normal. So the first time they come into the barn, they focus on the stink. Oh, God, it smells. Ah, she pooped. Or, they're just afraid. going in there. I'm not getting near that. And so, really starting to introduce the children to the animals and providing some transitions to them can be very, very important. For children with autism spectrum have a really hard time with new experiences and with traditions. And at farm, we're teaching so concepts simultaneously that the benefits are really multiple. It could be eye coordination, it can be sequencing, it can be listening to directions. Many of our children are oppositional. So telling them how to lead the dog or asking them to bring the dog over here already works on the issues that overall our treatment team is trying to address. Mentioned in the video, we're not there to cure kids, and that's very important. The child will have some of their issues in life. When you have autism spectrum, that go away. But you learn how to optimize your strengths, how to live better, how to make function in a society that works by different rules than you might work. And the animals become sort of a part in teaching some of these life skills. So after 2.5 years, when a child leaves, our goal is not necessarily to make them crackerjack equestrians or lifelong animal caretakers. If that were to happen, that's great. But we see the milieu we create, the environment, as being a very loving, caring, supporting environment, and by modeling good animal care, that really frames the day of the children from morning to evening while they're there. If it just did good while the child was with us, we've done our work. On the ethical side, you can imagine 300 animals. We work with 4 different veterinary clinics. We have an equine specialist, we have a wildlife veterinarian, a small animal vet, and a llama camel specialist. 2 years ago, we took in Phoenix and Sage, 2 Bactrian camels. I don't know if there's a set of them in there, but they're huge beasts, and we knew very little about their care. We got them from a religious group in California that gifted them to us. The camels are part of their religious tradition, and I was looking for 2 camels, but I saw a program in Austria that was working with camels, so I thought it might be worth a try. And this group on the internet, where else? And over a period of time, we agreed to an adoption situation, so they drove Phoenix and Sage across country. So now these are 4.5-year-old camels. They are young. They have a 45-year lifespan. We are working with them. We are training them. They are training us. It's been a sharp learning curve, and I do it any day, but brings me to the next point. I mentioned any animal can work in a program. Yes, I just really, really want to caution people to replicate programs and to just automatically do human-animal interaction programs without having the right knowledge. The bound. I would definitely not recommend Bactrian camels for someone who's just starting out. I think it's very helpful to have a lifetime of animal care behind you, but I found them to be as very sensitive animals. They relate to people much differently than the horses do, or the cows. They're even very different from the llamas. And both of them, Sage is much more external, much more engaging, much more interested in people. Phoenix is much more contained in himself. As a result, he is quieter and calmer, and Sage gets himself into trouble. Sage will very eagerly come over here and try to eat someone, but then suddenly he'll get scared and he'll sort of bolt away. And the individualities of the animals that work the kids, because exactly the character differences that the children have, that we have as people. And so building a relationship with animals at Green Chimneys is really the key, as much as learning about them, their biology, their behavior, vocationally taking care of them. It's really a relationship with an animal, and you saw, well, they are those camels. You saw a relationship with an emu, you saw a kookaburra in there, and that's sort of a bridge to some of the ethical concerns in general. Green Chimneys often has visitors from around the world. We get people who come to us, and not everyone immediately is enamored with everything. People say, well, what's a kura doing there? That's an exotic animal. Exotic animals don't belong in therapy settings and should be out in the wild. We get people questioning why permanently injured bald eagles are living in cages. That'd be better euthanized. It's not a life for a bird in a cage. You see horses in front of the sled. I mentioned in the last session, we've had people come up vehemently, accusing us of abusing horses. Horses don't need to pull sleds. Why would they pull sleds? That's not really in their interest. So having a much stronger animal rights perspective. Of course, many people question why we're not a vegetarian organization when we teach children to be caring for farm animals and to build relationships with farm animals. The ethical front, it's not a black and white world, it's a gray world. There are many ways to interpret the relationship with animals, and that each of us does for ourselves. A program, the approach we take is to really disclose what goes on. We invite people in, we explain our thinking, we explain our practice, and if you choose to disagree with certain aspects, that's fine. We can agree to disagree. As a result, we really have wonderful relationships with a lot of organizations. We take in farm animals regularly from sanctuaries, from humane societies, from police that bring animals to us. We are a very trusted animal care place. Animals stay with us for life. We make a lifetime commitment to the animal. There are a few exceptions. Some animals don't do very well in our program, and then we try to find them a home afterwards. In a nutshell, this is kind of the program we run, and usually about now there are a few questions that pop up, and that'll prompt me in what direction you might be more interested to find out a little bit more about what we do. Yes. Our children aren't just different ages, they have different IQ levels, they have different conditions. Many of them are developmentally behind their actual age, so that would be a 10-year-old child who has temper tantrums of a 6-year-old, or a 7-year-old who tantrums like a 2-year-old. Try to group them in cohesive groups that work, so it's not just age that matters. But obviously, you have to work with the children developmentally where they are at. And the same in the animal care. And whereas with a 17-year-old, you would discuss euthanasia of an animal in a way, you do it the same way with a 6-year-old. So constantly trying to, do that, but any teacher does that quite automatically. Yes? The question funding coming from. Green Chimneys is a nonprofit organization. We are a fee-for-service program. The main referral source to Green Chimneys are public schools. The school system sends us a student and pays a daily rate to have that student be in our care. That daily rate covers the medical care, medication, psychiatric care, residential if the child lives with us. None of the animal care or the animal expenses can go toward be paid for out of that money. That all has to be fundraised for. So we have pie with 3 pieces. Largest pie is fee for service. The second largest pie is private donors, individuals who support our work, grants, requests, things like that. And a lot of that goes towards the animal care because we have a lot of animal people who are really excited about our work. And then also do some related businesses. We have a nursery school, a summer camp. That all contributes a little bit, but we're a nonprofit organization. Years ago, we were 100% child welfare agency referral. That has changed. New York State has moved to preferring their foster home placement to residential placement, so we had to go to a different type. And at the same time, autism started to really challenge school systems. Autism spectrum is a issue in schools, and schools struggle with kids, especially the type of child we have. On average, they've been psychiatrically hospitalized twice. Most of them take 2 to 3 medications. We try to reduce the medication as much as possible, but believe me, I've seen the meds make a huge, huge difference. Yes. To Friday, the school day rules our campus. How much time do the children spend with animals? In my not enough. I wish it was even more. But in the morning, 7:30, individual kids get picked up at the dormitories. They come to the barn. They do morning feeding, turn out animals. So before school, that's a smaller group. Then during the day, classes come into each of the animal areas. We have teachers in each animal area who do, I would say, animal-based education, but focused on the animal, relating to the animal. And the children can volunteer for extra jobs on the farm depending on their interest. And out of 200 children, between 40 and 150 volunteer for X hours to come into the area. And so, really need to understand that the animals are embedded in our campus. Architecturally, we created a campus where no matter where you stand, you see gardens or you see animals. So when you're transitioning from one class to the next, walking by the horse paddock, or the shelter dogs are walking through the courtyard as your class goes to lunch. There's an aviary with birds in the school administration building. So really, it's almost a little bit like this campus. You're kind of surrounded by animals and can't ever forget them. And a culture has developed. That's just Green Chimneys. And I often am asked the question, do children ever hurt animals? And it's an important topic because there is a correlation between have had abuse histories, children abusing animals. It's definitely a very serious warning flag, mental health context. But because our supervision is so high and we are so aware of that correlation, that we really are very confident at the safety of our animals. But going to the culture, we have peacocks, guinea hens roaming free. And one of the gauges that I always use to see if our animals really are okay is how close I can get to the peacocks. If I walk up to the peacock and the peacock is 2 feet away from me, that means it has not been chased. And the reason the kids don't do that kind of behavior is because after a while, the children themselves hold each other accountable. That's not what we do. If a child, something stupid about an animal, immediately the other kids correct that child and say, no, don't do that. That's not what we do. Yes. To what's involved with our program, very. Our children are not orphans. They are not, wards of the state. They are connected to loved families who are struggling with disabilities that they really, really don't understand. By the time our families come to us with their child, they've been through various hospitals, various clinics, various schools, and they're kind of at a point where they almost despair. So working with the families, family therapy is very, very important because much as we work with the child, the family also needs to sort of gain some new skills, learn some new approaches, and the children often go home in between weekends. Every other weekend there's a home weekend. Parents come in. So that's very significant. Yes. How to actually tell what an animal feels. Yeah. That is very, very hard. I sort of an easy, glossy answer to that, or I can basically admit that oftentimes I don't know what an animal feels. I don't know what the corn snake thinks. I don't know what the, sheep really thinks. What we can do over time is start to recognize some of the most obvious signs of discomfort, in a dog, stress yawning, the dog is just, so and uncomfortable in the situation. A horse putting its ears back, swishing its tail. But even then, you're not sure, is there some physical pain? The cause of that? Is it situational? Is something else going on? I think your animals really is most preventative. Scheduling too many sessions for an animal, not forcing them, giving them an out. I mean by that is if the goat really isn't coming towards you that day and really doesn't want to be haltered, let it go. It doesn't want to do that today. The challenge in a program becomes when you are boxed into school schedules, classes, you have this many kids, you really need the horses to do this. The danger then always is that you kind of, bring the horse out anyway that day, even though that morning it may not have looked so great. So this challenge in any therapeutic riding center, in any program working with dogs, I invite you to look at some footage of videos of dogs visiting in hospital settings. One of the interesting things to do is to turn off the sound and to just watch the dog as it interacts. Very often you will see avoiding contact, dog looking for places to go other than towards the person, the yawns, and so forth. Now, the flip side of that is life. Does it need to be 100% comfortable all of the time? I don't know. Is your pet dog 100% comfortable all the time? With your pet dog to the fair and you're taking it around all afternoon, you're having a great time, is the dog really enjoying that too? So to sum up that question, I think is what's important. We need to ask, is the animal comfortable? We always need to realize that we will never quite know. That research that's being done on blood cortisol, all of that is so important. Dr. Muller, that's an area of your interest. That no more. However, the problem then is, so if we find out a therapy horse is or is not stressed, what about a riding horse? What about a horse in that setting? And what's acceptable? So, yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Yes. So there's several components to the questions, but the initial one was about research and do we do research? Up until recently, we have not been in a position to do a lot of research as a practicing program. We have some small research projects. It's to do in an active program, very difficult to set up clean research designs. Nationally, about 4 years ago, Dr. Alan Kasdan, who at the time was the director of the American Zoological Association, did research, a biography review. He was paid by the Humane Society of the United States to go through all the existing biographies that he could find in human-animal interactions. So that's anything with horses, dogs, anything. And he basically came out of that saying that there was very little research in that relatively large bibliography that stood up as research and could be credible in design, in terms of all the things that researchers judge. I'm a researcher. Discouraging, because it's not that we had that huge a bibliography to start with. And I really feel the next 20 years in human-animal interaction is going to research. And what's difficult, you're talking so many different types of animals, so many different human populations, so many different services, occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, psychotherapy. animals. Each of those is a totally different interaction. Yet they're working in every one of those in different ways. Yes. All right. That ratio, I can give you, a classroom was very helpful. 8 children in a classroom with 1 teacher, 2 teachers' aides, and this is a 1-to-1 staff. There's so many different types of animals, but generally there are at least staff in every interaction, and smaller groups is the norm. 3 children, 6 children, like never going to be 35 children sort of roaming around, very controlled. I really appreciate you guys being here. I just want to leave an open invitation. If you ever are in Brewster, New York, we're open on the weekends, so you can just wander and see the place. If you want to have a personal tour, email me, get in contact with me on our website. You can find me. And I'd love to give you a more detailed professional tour. An internship program, it's an 8-month internship, usually postgraduate, so these are people who have finished a bachelor or a master's, and you're particularly interested, you select one area of animals to work with, wildlife, dogs, horses, and that's the area where you stay, and you work very, very closely with children. So I'm doing a conference next April 24th, 25th, a human-animal interaction conference. We have speakers from Israel, from England, Germany. It'll be a really nice event. Now I'm done.